Hello everyone and welcome back to the Retro Recall. I hope you're doing awesome. Today we have another system from that large e-waste haul that we did a little bit ago. This system here is the Dell Dimension XPS B933 tower. This is one of those computers I had seen in friends' houses growing up, and I was so jealous. Having an OEM system that was as powerful as this was back in the day. I'm really excited to be able to go over this system today in detail with everybody and get it all cleaned up. So you know what? Let's get right to it. Okay, and we're back here, and I'll be honest with you, I just love the look of this case. This is one of those systems that were in that haul that I looked at and thought, you know what, I cannot wait to start to actually go through this and see what the system's all about. So we have what looks like a CD-ROM drive here. It looks to be original to me based on the coloring. You can see that the different materials has caused it to discolor with the sun differently. So we have, the camera's not really picking up on it, but this is actually very similar in color, the two plastics. Then we have the rest of the case here. And Dell, you know, we've seen some of the other designs on the channel from Attack of the Dells, from the Battle of the OEMs, from the Dell triplets and all that. We saw all those on the channel already, and they've been of a certain type. So to see this system specifically makes me very happy in the sense that this was a design at the time. So it looks like we have an expansion bay here for another optical drive, and we have two expansions here, it looks like, for a floppy disk, or, you know, we could theoretically put a zip drive in there or what have you. So it was great to have the extra expansion plus a floppy drive here as well. So not only do we have the option for expansion, they also threw this in here as well, not limiting you from one or the other. We have a power button here. We have a hard drive LED, and we also have a reset button here. And reset, of course, is something that kind of fizzled away over the years, but it's great to have that on the system. We have what looks like some ventilation here. I'm putting my finger around here. There's definitely some ventilation in here. Of course, that's great. Ventilation's awesome until it starts to become what I call Hoover vacuums, and they suck all the dirt and dust in there and all that. It's great as long as you keep the system nice and clean. All right, so we have the Dell logo here and Dimension. So Dell Dimension, so they have different tiers. You have the Dell Inspiron, the Dell Dimension, the Dell Precision, the Dell Optiplex, depending on all the different ranges of different classes that you had of the computers back in the day. And the Dell Dimension definitely would have been something a little more mid-range for sure. And the XPS, of course, is synonymous with the more performance line. Be really interesting to get into this system. We have the model number again, as I mentioned earlier. So we have B as in boy, 933 is the model number. We have a little bit of a gouge in the front here. I don't think that's broken off. I just think there's a big scratch here in the front. I mean, it's in the plastic. It is what it is. But most of the stuff on the front here seems to be pretty cosmetic. Down here, we have the Intel Pentium 3 inside sticker here, the case badge. We'll see if that's what's actually installed in the system. Be interesting to see what it is. And then we have design for Microsoft Windows 2000 Professional, Windows NT Workstation 4, and Windows 98. Now, there is a Windows 98 Second Edition sticker license key on the side. Flipping around on the side here, we have more case. So just have a simple little circle here. Again, different coloration of plastics, I guess, based on the materials that they had used. And then we have a foot kind of system here, like kind of a base to prevent the best you can from tipping. It's dirty as old heck here, so definitely going to require some TLC. Now, you'll see that it's missing a PSU. That is completely explainable. I'll talk about that in a minute. That was all me. Okay, then we have additional ventilation here. So we actually have a fan that's mounted inside here. This is going, I believe, to the CPU directly, as opposed to just having a fan that's on board to the CPU fan and heatsink. This is actually coming right off of it, right out the back. And that's something I've noticed about Dell's quite a bit, is that whether it's a clamshell case or the BTX form factor, they really promoted this ductwork type design to get the heat out of the computer, which I think is an intuitive design as long as it's working versus blowing the heat inside the case and then relying on secondary fans to get the heat out of, dissipate the heat out of the case. So we have two PS2 ports here. We have two USB ports, no doubt USB version 1. We have a COM port here, which is serial, and we also have an LPT port here as well. What's interesting, we have the ABCD lights in the back here. And one of the things I asked on one of the other videos, I think it was the BTX Invasion, the Dell BTX Invasion video. It was really around those are just really like basically BIOS codes that comes here and gives you an idea of what's wrong with the system. If there's something wrong, so you can take your manual, look it up. It will tell you which ones to look at, and it will give you kind of a code. That's above and beyond, of course, which would normally come with the beep codes that you would look up. Just really interesting that they included it as early as this. I don't know how much earlier they would have included it, but it's definitely neat to see that as well. And we have our video card here. It looks like we have SVGA. We have video out, so I don't know if that's S-video or a specialized port. And we have another, I assume, a video, or, you know, we're talking RCA here. Be interesting to see what that is. And we have a NIC here as well, an Ethernet port. Okay, so I'll swap this around. Oh, and before I do, actually, let's talk about the PSU. So this is one system I was going to work on in another video. And the intention of that video was just to plug it in and see if I can get this to post. Before I do a video, I kind of gauge the scope of what I'm going to be doing. Anyway, this is the original power supply that was in this system. It just looks like to be an ATX power supply. It does have a different type of connector, though, that maybe you guys can help in the comments. So we have the ATX 20 pin, and then we have this, what looked like an original AT type style that is required to be able to power this system. So I don't know if that's proprietary to Dell or if that was something that was just a standard at the time, but I plugged this in and there was nothing. Literally nothing happened. And then so I popped this on the power supply tester, and again, nothing. And I was going, okay, well, it's not powering up. It's not doing the boards. Nothing's going on here. The load doesn't matter. And all of a sudden, poof, I heard a pop and a whole bunch of smoke came out of the side here. Definitely a putrid plastic smell. So then I took apart the power supply because I was really curious to see if there was something in here that was just so obvious. I would go, okay, well, is it a capacitor? Is it a tantalum? Is there something else in here that I need to change? And I can't find it. I checked everything. So I don't know. There's no clear indication of any damage to this power supply board or the components. So I'm guessing it's one of the larger components and just died. That's officially my first power supply that actually gave me that sort of issue. So what are we going to do? Well, I took another one of the Dell systems that we have out there, and we have the identical power supply, which is awesome. So yeah, I just borrowed this from another one of the systems from that e-waste haul that we did. It worked perfectly, and meaning I plugged it in to the board and it literally just, I heard beeps. It did something. Now I haven't gone any further. In full transparency, I haven't gone any further with it. In today's video, we're going to pop this back in. We're going to take a look at the inside and just see if we can get this system posting and possibly get the operating system installed on it. In terms of getting it all cleaned up, I'm just going to do a general cleaning of the system, you know, kind of get it all kind of looking relatively okay. I don't know how much of that I'll do on video this time around, just because you guys have seen quite a bit of cleaning videos when I do work on these. You know, I'll just probably end up just doing some jump cuts here. But essentially what I want to do is just get it kind of generally cleaned. So the first thing we're going to do is, and this is the style case that we have, is just unscrew this kind of this screw here. It's pretty simple. And then once that's out, it just kind of sits in there. It won't let you pull it out any further, which is great because then you're not end up losing it, you know, like we do with everything. So then on here, we have just there's two little kind of clips, top and bottom, from the side panel, and that's it. So you just kind of squeeze those down, and this just kind of comes off, and there's not much more to say outside of that. It's just literally that easy. I'm just going to put that aside for a moment, and then we'll look at the inside, which is extremely filthy. Okay, so we have our optical drive here, which doesn't have any cabling whatsoever connected here. We have lots of space here for expansion. Then we also have indication here of HDD and FDD. So we have our hard disk drive and our floppy disk drive, which could potentially go here. Then we have our floppy connector here for our floppy drive that's already installed. We have this kind of cage system here going on for what I would believe is either another hard drive could potentially go in here, or this is cable management. But anyway, it's definitely, I'm going to have to remove this because I need to get to this drive here. This is the another hard disk housing, and this is where I believe the original hard disk was installed, which of course is not installed now. I could theoretically put it up here just because I do have access to doing that. I just like to put it where it should be. Okay, over here we have on the board, there's two power connectors I was referring to. So we have the ATX power connector here, and then we have that, what again looked like this AT style connector that was there as well. So interesting to see that. And again, I'm open in the comments. If there's anything that you guys can shed some light on that for me, I would be really appreciative of that. Then we have this big kind of cooling system type stuff going on here. So I'm just going to open that up. I believe that's all I got to do. Yeah. So this is just like literally a kind of like a, tunnel, wind tunnel. So what it's doing is it's taking this fan here and sucking the air out. I think it's blowing, like pulling air out is my gut feeling on this, not pushing air in. And so that's awesome. And then you have this really awesome heatsink here as well. So what I'm going to do today when I go to clean this up, I'm just going to get all that kind of cleaned out here. I'm not going to go through all the work of removing the board 100%. I plan on doing something else with this, so that's why I'm not doing that just yet. So then for the board itself, we have two IDE headers on the board here, and we also have the floppy header. So for memory, and this is funny, we have more RD RAM. So this is RIM RAM that's in the system. And I go from having none, and then I go to having a bunch, which is just crazy. But again, they tried to push this through for performance. I believe that's what this memory was used for before it became DDR2 and 3 and moving on, kind of came to standards. It says 256 megabytes, so we have two of them. So I imagine that's what's installed in here is 512 megabytes of memory. So I'm just going to get that pop back in here. I don't want to do much more outside of that. I did, when I plugged this in, it sounded like it was a memory kind of problem, error code that was kind of popping in there. So I don't exactly know what it is. We're going to find that out in a minute. Let's look at our video card here. Let's remove the screw and see what we have inside. So Dell in their nice little thing here. Okay, we have an AGP card, and it looks like a Trident 3D image 9850 chip that's on here, Trident 97. And on the back here, we have a Jeton or Jeton. I'm not sure exactly. I don't know how else to say that. And then the card here, it says TV97 3D and TV. So the ampersand symbol and TV. And yeah, so that's basically what I have here in terms of information. I mean, if you know anything about this card, let me know. Is it a decent card? Is it something, I'm going to leave it in the system. I'm going to utilize it. Again, if this is something you used to have, or this is something that, you think it was a decent card back in the day, or you're, scream at me through the comments and say, get rid of that card, throw it in the garbage. We don't need it anymore. Let me know. That'll be awesome. Actually, I'm just going to leave the card out because I'm going to do some cleaning there on it. Next, we have what's probably going to be a pretty basic Ethernet card. I'm not sure if this card would have come with the system, or if it's something that was added after the fact. And oh, there we go. Look at that. We have a 3-COM Ethernet card. I just love these cards because of their compatibility. So it is a PCI card. It is a 3-COM 3C905C-TX-M EtherLink 10100 PCI. Easily found for drivers, works very compatible in different variations and different operating systems. Really well-rounded card. And judging by the dirt and dust and grime that's on this card, it may have been original to this system. Not 100% sure. So then the other thing I'll notice is that we have all of the, except one of the breakouts here open. So, I mean, obviously that's pulling in some dirt and over the years and through its use. But I'm wondering if, I have this kind of sound cable or this audio cable coming from the optical drive that would have been plugged into what I presume would have been a sound card. So maybe throwing in the Sound Blaster Live card would be pretty good for this system. I heard it's pretty good for this type, for this era. So it might be good to throw that in there. So then we have a CMOS battery here, which I'm just going to pop out right away because I'm going to end up having to do that anyway. So we have a Maxell 2032, and the date on this, I believe, is 03. I don't know if the system, exactly what year it would have come out. The cards say 1998 on them. It says Windows 98 on it. It said designed for Windows 2000, so I don't exactly know. So it's probably one of the originals or close to it. I think we're ready to go here. So what I'm going to do is I want to install, or I guess I'm going to get everything kind of cleaned up first. That's what I want to do. I want to get everything cleaned up, get everything kind of sorted out here, get it in a position where I'm able to get everything kind of ready to go. I feel confident enough now that I did hear some beep codes. I'm hoping because it did kind of do that, it was reading the BIOS. I mean, I do have the post analyzer card if I absolutely need to do additional troubleshooting. But regardless, I'd like to get this all kind of cleaned up, which I can do fairly quickly. I'll do that right now, get it looking pretty good, and then figure out what we're going to do for the hard drive and go from there. Okay, let's go right to it. Okay, and we're back, and after at least an hour and a half in real time scrubbing, we were able to get to a really good spot here. So I just want to walk everyone through what I'm going to do now. I'm going to build all this back, put it all back together, but before I do, I just going to want to go over everything. So we have an IDE cable here. This is a 24-inch cable. This is brand new old stock. I'm going to use that to connect both the hard disk and the optical drive together. I've already gone ahead and made sure that the hard disk is set to master and slave for the CD-ROM drive. The hard drive itself has two master options, a master by itself and a master with a slave attached. So I'm going to be utilizing that, assuming the cable reaches. If it doesn't reach, I will go ahead and get a secondary cable. We have our floppy cable here as well, which we already know. We have the Trident card, as we mentioned earlier, and it was quite dirty, but you can see now it is quite shiny. It's in great shape now, but my goodness, was it ever dirty. The same goes for the 3Com card. That was quite filthy as well. One thing I'm noticing here, there is a bit of oxidation on this card, specifically on the metal, and the isopropyl alcohol and things like that tend to inhibit some of that, but just something to keep an eye out for. And then, as mentioned, we have our Sound Blaster Live Model CT4830 sound card. And this is from 1998, and this is a PCI sound card. And again, this tends to be a pretty popular card as well, with some really good sound output and quality for the system. And we also have our 2 sticks of memory. I'm not going past 512 because that's what was in the system, 256 sticks of RIM RAM, so RD RAM. We're going to be utilizing that as well. I found some spare blanks for the back of the system itself, just because I don't want to, after all the cleaning and things, I want to make sure I keep as much of that dust as possible. And of course, this is all clean, and same thing with the power supply. Now, this guy here, I completely dunked in water. I just soaked it. There was no components here. There was no metal, no wiring, everything. Great design from Dell. You can pop this right off, and it's just plastics. And so I was able to take this and I completely scrubbed that down, and it looks absolutely stunning. I just absolutely love that. What a huge difference. Now, I did the same to the whole rest of the case. I cleaned the interior, scrubbed absolutely everything inside, every nook and cranny that we have. I installed the hard drive, as you probably see it here. I was going to put it up here, but I figured put it back down to where that specialized caddy is there. So I put that in place. And then, of course, the plastics itself, I mean, a lot of gouges, a lot of scratches, a lot of marks, but we have all that cleaned up as well. A lot of words to say. This took quite a bit to get to, but it is so well worth it when you have a working system. I'm going to go ahead and continue getting this assembled, and we'll see what happens after that. Let's go. And there we are, our fresh new battery installed. Okay, Now we'll flip it around the front here, which is all nice and scrubbed up and cleaned. I see a little gunk on that. There we go. But yeah, I mean, we have our front. Look at that beautiful front, just nice and clean. And this wasn't retrobrighted. This is strictly, yeah, just in good shape. So we have our front end now. Our front bezel's all installed. And yeah, look at that. That just looks absolutely stunning. Look at that computer. And the same thing with the side. It is just absolutely all scrubbed. The only thing left to do, I think, in terms of the front coloring and the side is this yellowish colors we have going on here. I think this will be fairly straightforward to retrobright as part of the process, assuming the drive works. If not, I have another drive that will definitely match the color of this case that's old enough that will make the look. I just like to keep things original as possible, assuming that this was the one that was original. And then again, this plastic case here, fairly simple to retrobright as part of the process. Okay, I think we are good to go. So the next step we're going to do here is get the monitor, keyboard, mouse, get everything kind of situated on the bench here, and we'll see if we can get this computer posting. Okay, and we're back, and look at this beautiful machine all cleaned up and resurrected from e-waste. Now, I went ahead and found my AT keyboard by Acer. I don't have a Dell beige keyboard. This is the one that's really, really great shape. It's metal, very hefty. I had to use an adapter, of course, because this only supports PS2, but I use the adapter no problem. And I have my Microsoft mouse here. The sticker on the side says Windows 98. It says designed for Windows 98, and so 98 second edition. You know what? I'm just going to do that because that's probably what came on this system originally. I don't know if this posts yet outside of what I had told everyone at the beginning, which is what I just tested the power supply in, and I heard some beeps. This was by itself without anything hooked up to it. And after all the work that we've just done to it, let's see if it posts. We have power. That's a good sign. I see a hard disk light. Power light was on to the CD-ROM drive. Nothing on the screen though. My keyboard light's just lit up. I have post. Trident 4 megabyte. There we are. We have copyright 1996-2000 Intel Corporation. We have our Dell.com logo. Dell Dimension XPS B933 BIOS version A006. Intel Pentium 3 processor at 933 megahertz. And was going to go delete and to enter setup with 512 megabytes of system RAM. That deoxit or contact cleaner that I put in, I've just learned to do that before firing up these systems now. Everybody who watches my channel knows I don't have any luck with RAM. So we have our BIOS version processor. Like I said, it was a Pentium 3 933. System bus frequency is at 133 megahertz. We have 256K of cache RAM. Our service tag, total memory, banks 1 and 2, is PC800 memory. So that's our RD RAM or RIM RAM that we have installed, and that's the 512 meg total. So it's nice that it's dual channel installed. Processor serial numbers disabled, memory configurations ECC, so it's error correction reporting, and then down here for our system date and time. I have the clock all set there, which is wonderful. Under advanced, setup warning. Sending items on this screen to incorrect values may cause your system to malfunction. Well, let's take a look here. Peripheral configuration. So we have a serial, parallel, legacy, USB support, all those good things. So we have all that all set up properly. Our IDE controller, so it is detecting the primary IDE master. So that's our Western Digital 80 gigabyte drive that I installed. And then we have a 48-speed CD-ROM drive as a slave. So it's all configured correctly there, which is amazing. Under diskette configuration, we have our controller enabled and it's detecting the diskette A, which is the 1.44 megabyte drive. Bigger video configuration, so we have our AGP aperture size and primary video adapter set to AGP, which is fine. Security, we won't touch right now. Under boot, we have disabled for quiet boot and quick boot. Restore an AC power loss, last state, that's all pretty standard stuff. First boot device is going to be our floppy, which is going to be perfectly fine to be able to boot for Windows 98. I didn't test the floppy drive yet, so definitely want to go and test that. So we have our TAPI CD-ROM drive as our second boot device, which would make sense, and then our third boot device would be the hard disk. I think we're good there. So I'm going to pop this disk in. I'm going to click on Exit Saving Changes, and yes, and hopefully it boots from the floppy disk. Okay, it says invalid system desk. Press any key. And you can see that the image here is kind of distorted. So I'm just wondering if it's something to do with the disk itself. I did clean inside the drive the best I could. I'm going to try it again. Oh, seems to be accessing it this time. Well, starting Windows 98. Let's do it with the CD-ROM support. We don't need the floppy for long. So there might be a future part of the project here to take this drive apart and clean it up and clean the heads. Usually isopropyl alcohol on the heads will clean that up. It's very possible that some of the guides as well need to be lubed up there as well. Okay, starting up everything that we need. Okay, let's go right into diagnostic tools and then go fdisk. So we have an NTFS. It looks like an NTFS partition here. Delete non-DOS partition. Yes, number 1. No label. Yes, absolutely. Let's display now to confirm. So we have the disk completely empty. Create DOS partition, primary DOS partition, yes. So I'm going to cut right to the end when we have the partitions all created and the drive ready to be formatted. Okay, we're just rebooting now. I have the fdisk process complete and the drive has been completely formatted. So as per some of the recommendations I've had on the channel, I'm going to copy the Windows 98 folder down to the hard drive. By doing so, we'll be installing the operating system directly from the hard disk. So here we go. Okay, and we're back, and we have the operating system installed with no time to spare. Let's take a look at this. So Windows 98 Second Edition, Retro Recall. So we have our computer, which is 512 megs of RAM. And sure enough, we have a few issues here. So it's detecting our video card as a standard PCI graphics adapter. We know it's an S3 that's in there, so we'll have to get that installed. And under network adapters, I didn't think that was going to install 3COM either. So we have our Ethernet controller, input controller, we'll have to figure out what that one is. We have a multimedia audio device and unknown device. I imagine some of these will install automatically as we go through this. I don't know why things are closing on me, but here we are. Okay, so we'll get this all sorted out right now and be right back. And we're back with everything installed. Let's take a look. So under our device manager, we have our CD-ROM drive, which is our Light-On 48x speed, which we knew was, and our Creative Miscellaneous devices. This is the Creative Labs Live that we have. So we have Creative Sound Blaster 16 emulation for DOS emulation and other Sound Blaster 16 type games. We have multimedia interface and the game port joystick. We also installed the chipset drivers. They're all installed. Display drivers, we have the Trident 3D Image 9850 AGP, so that's all successful now. And then, of course, our network drivers, we have the 3COM Etherlink network card installed. There's our sound, video, and game controllers. So Sound Blaster Live, love to see the creative. And then, of course, we have our USB controllers. Something interesting happened to me while I was doing the driver installations. And I think it was just timing. I don't think it had anything to do with what I did, but I installed the chipset drivers on the system. And after about 2 or 3 restarts, because that's what it required, my PS2 keyboard, well, this is, as you know, this is the AT to PS2 adapter using this keyboard, and also my PS2 mouse, everything started going wonky. You know, I would move my mouse and it was choppy, and my keyboard started coming up keyboard error on the BIOS, but would partially work in Windows and eventually just stopped. I changed out my keyboard. I tried a different mouse, which I have here now. And then, of course, the mouse is USB, so it worked right away. I couldn't get the keyboard going, and I needed a keyboard, so I didn't want to use a USB keyboard. Anyway, long story short, I ended up wiggling the cord around, and it worked again, which was so weird. So I used some contact cleaner inside the ports and put them, put the port in and out and the connector, and boom, works just great. The keyboard works fine, and I imagine the mouse would work fine again too. So definitely food for thought when you're having an issue like that, just to use some contact cleaner, because it's an old computer. It was sitting probably for a long time before it got tossed to e-waste and was going to be taken all apart and recycled. And here we are with the system, and you've seen on this video the computer being restored, and just looking at it is just absolutely amazing. So here we are with a fully operational Windows 98 PC, Pentium 3 933 with 512 megabytes of memory. We're going to try out that AGP card that's in here, that Trident card. It's not a fantastic card, but I want to see what it can do and see what it kind of looks like. So we're going to try out a couple games. Let's go.
Get ready! Go! Nightmare and Barefoot are getting up close and personal.
Whoa!
Baby, roll! Barefoot has just hit the checkpoint. Turn around, buddy.
This isn't right. Where is everyone? Whatever happened to my people? Yes. Who is he? He looks to be diseased. Brethren are insane with bloodlust.
Down my barn.
And there we have it. We were talking Monster Truck Madness 2. Completely showed so many different artifacts on the computer. Definitely struggled. I had that turned up all the way in terms of graphics, told it to use hardware 3D acceleration, and it struggled with it. I mean, the speed was fine-ish, but definitely a lot of artifacting throughout the entire gameplay. When it came to Heretic 2, depending on how you want to pronounce it, it ran fairly well, I think. I mean, the graphics are for what they are, but I think it ran pretty well. In terms of speed, again, not an issue on this computer. Definitely excited playing that. And of course, Dark Forces 2, just an amazing, amazing game. And I just love that game. Played that quite a bit when I was growing up. It played beautifully, and I had the 3D acceleration turned on for it on 640 by 480. I wouldn't push it any further than that with this card for sure. I've played it on my Voodoo graphics cards, and I can bump that right up to the top resolution without an issue. But this card definitely would struggle with that. So I think we're going to leave it at that for today. I think we did quite a bit considering that this system was a complete mess, disgusting, didn't turn on, bad power supply. We replaced the power supply. We cleaned up the entire inside of the system. We cleaned up the outside of the system. We installed a hard disk in here. Again, I love the physical hardware, love the sound of the hard disk makes, and love the experience. And, you know, when you're talking about a CF card adapter, they definitely have their pluses depending on the system you're using. I just prefer to use the hard disk. We have our Dell Dimension XPS B933 system, running just beautifully, running Windows 98 2nd Edition. And I personally think that this will make a great, retro gaming computer. And, I think an upgrade of the video card for sure would definitely be helpful, but I don't know if I would do too much more to this system. Love to be able to retrowrite these two components to match the beauty of the case that we've been able to restore in today's video. But I think it's pretty much it. I mean, I love the systems back in the day. I love the look of this computer, one that I'm going to be keeping in my collection. That said, if you liked today's video, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. Makes a world of difference for the channel. We just passed 4,000 subscribers. Thank you to absolutely everybody who supports the Retro Recall. Please hit the notification button, change it to all. You'll be notified of new content such as this. Please leave a comment down below. Did you have one of these computers back in the day? Did you play any of the games that I showcased on the computer today? Did you have any experience with that Trident card? And what would you recommend for a video card for this computer if I was to do an upgrade to it? I respond to all of my comments, always making new content. We'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.